dinosaurs, masters of the planet for 160 million years. The biggest, baddest animals ever to walk the earth. They had claws a foot long and enormous bone-crushing jaws with teeth the size of carving knives. Weighing up to 80 tons, the ground would literally shake when they moved. But how do we know so much about them? For over 40 years, Horizon and the BBC have followed the world's paleontologists on their quest to find out what these elusive creatures were really like.
As a paleontologist, I love digging up the possibility of monsters of my childhood, looking for strange beasts that once roamed where I live now.
Over time, with only bones and tiny fragments of information to go on, scientists have managed to piece together the complex jigsaw puzzle that is the life of the dinosaurs. There have been astonishing new finds, controversial theories, and extraordinary revelations about these giant reptiles.
Quick, agile, fast-moving.
15,000 pounds of gut-crunching terror.
These tantalizing clues and breakthrough new technology have enabled scientists to reach for the answers to the biggest questions of all. Do we really know what happened to the dinosaurs? And is there a chance that some might still be alive today? When Horizon first began reporting on dinosaurs over 40 years ago, paleontology was a science based on a lot of speculation and not that much evidence. Scientists really just had bits and pieces to go on. So it's hardly surprising that the dinosaurs we came to know and love were really just a mixture of fact and fantasy.
The largest flesh-eater the world has ever seen.
I'm not afraid.
All children now learn at an early age, but are reluctant to believe, that Tyrannosaurus and all the other dinosaurs followed a well-trod trail to oblivion.
I see a little hole up in his nose.
They've heard other stories about dinosaurs too, many of which are myths, replacing the fairy stories of earlier generations. For our limited knowledge of these prehistoric monsters provides numerous questions, but very few answers.
I would like to get his now.
Look at that. 9 feet tall. What a monster.
For years, scientists had grappled with fundamental questions. They didn't know what dinosaurs ate, how they bred. Sometimes they weren't even sure how the skeletons fitted together. They also couldn't work out whether one of the major groups of dinosaurs, the sauropods, lived on land or in water. But one of the first major finds covered by Horizon revealed evidence of sauropod behavior frozen in time. Footprints.
In the bed of the Paluxy River in Texas are tracks made by dinosaurs 70 million years ago when the hard limestone rock was mud. This is evidence that convinces the most doubting tourist. Some are tracks of the meat-eating dinosaurs, others of the heavy, long-necked, long-tailed dinosaurs. It is these which pose a problem. Were the creatures who made these tracks swamp dwellers, or did they move around on land? 30 years ago, the river was dammed and the tracks photographed and carefully plotted. The shallowness of the footprints and the absence of tail marks suggested a herd of the animals living in water sufficiently deep to keep their tails out of the mud. It's difficult to believe that such huge creatures weighing up to 80 tons could support themselves out of water. But here is evidence for just that, a tail mark. If these creatures could support themselves out of water on one occasion, couldn't they be ordinary land dwellers who occasionally ventured to the swamps?
At the time, a single tail mark was not enough to convince the paleontologists that sauropods were anything but aquatic. But as more skeletons were discovered, their similarities to animals living on land became clearer.
So then we have long straight limbs and a long neck, adaptations not for hippo-like existence, but for living on land, feeding high on land trees.
Scientists looked again at the fossil footprints and turned to living animals to try and determine how fast the sauropods could move.
Dinosaur bones are only one source of information. Present-day animals are another. Neil Alexander is Professor of Zoology at Leeds University. His main research interest is analysing how animals move. Recently, he's found a way of applying his work to answering a seemingly impossible question. How fast did dinosaurs walk? On the beach at Southport, some vital evidence was laid out.
These are replicas of some of the biggest footprints ever found. They're found in Texas. They're not new footprints. They're footprints made something like 100 million years ago, preserved as fossils. Now these big fellows, these are the hind feet. It was a four-legged animal. And these hind feet are about 3 feet long. Stride length here of 8 feet from right hind foot down to right hind foot down again.
The dinosaur footprints are only part of the information needed. Now something called a Froude number has to be worked out. It's a mathematical formula relating the size of an animal's legs to the way its stride increases as it moves faster.
Now we're going along about 5 miles an hour, and the horse is walking. Each foot is moving in its own time. There are no 2 feet going together. We're going to speed up a bit, and then you'll see the gait change. If we go up now to about 10 miles an hour, there we are. The diagonally opposite feet are moving together. Now if we speed up again and go further, there we are. Going through a canter into a full gallop. In the gallop, we've got the 2 forefeet moving about together, the 2 hind feet moving again about together. And there we must be going at something like 20 miles an hour.
Professor Alexander has studied dozens of animals, from tiny gerbils to huge elephants, and worked out their Froude numbers. From these, he's able to estimate what the Froude number for any animal of any size will be.
And so we find out what the Froude number is for the dinosaur and how fast the dinosaur was going. And it's awful slow. 2 miles an hour. Now, 2 miles an hour, that's a slow walk for a man. For something with legs 3 times as long as a man, it's a very slow walk indeed.
Professor Alexander's work had reinforced the widely held view that dinosaurs were slow, lumbering reptiles. But the discovery of a new kind of dinosaur would change our thinking.
We have right over here one that I discovered myself, which I think is one of the most interesting dinosaurs that's ever been found. In fact, I also think it's one of the most important dinosaurs ever found. Let me show you some very interesting things about this fellow. First of all, it's a carnivorous dinosaur, but not a big one like Tyrannosaurus. It's just a little fella, probably about 4 or 5 feet high, maybe about 8 or 9 feet in length. Weighed maybe about 175 pounds, about your weight or mine. One of the curious things about him is the construction of his foot. And the peculiar thing about this is the very large sickle-like claw on the one toe. And remember that in addition to this long bony claw, there was a horny sheath that fit over that, so that the total claw was probably half again as long. Obviously not designed for walking, and quite certainly an offensive weapon. This strange structure, which we had never seen before in any of the carnivorous dinosaurs, is the reason that I coined the name for this that I did, Terrible Claw, Deinonychus. But he was a fellow I wouldn't want to meet on a dark street at night, I'll tell you.
John Ostrom realized Deinonychus was a groundbreaking dinosaur, one that overturned long-held ideas about how they moved.
So the picture that we get from Deinonychus seems to be completely different from the old picture that we had of dinosaurs as sort of sluggish, sun-basking animals like modern lizards and turtles. Deinonychus seems to be a very quick, agile, fast-moving, two-legged predator, good balance control, means a high neurological development. This discovery is what sort of pushed me over the brink into looking at dinosaurs in a whole new light.
Other dinosaurs, too, were suddenly seen as fast-moving, agile creatures. And Ostrom's new ideas about them developed like this. In the animal world, there's a major division. In one group, there are mammals, which are active, hot-blooded creatures. In the other are reptiles, which are generally less active and cold-blooded. Where do dinosaurs fit? Since, like mammals, they were very active, Ostrom reasoned perhaps they were hot-blooded too.
This idea was revolutionary. Was it really possible that dinosaurs, ancient reptiles, could be warm-blooded? It would be another 30 years before deep bone analysis revealed that he might be right.
For years, paleontologists have been looking at the outsides of dinosaurs. On the outsides, we can understand how dinosaurs evolved and how their anatomy changed over time. But deep inside the bones, we can actually trace dinosaur life.
By analysing thin cross-sections of fossilised dinosaur bone, Christy Curry-Rogers is helping to rewrite what we know about dinosaurs from the inside out.
I think let's go with this one and the smaller one. Those two look good. Okay. One of the things that we see when we crack open dinosaur bones is a story of a very fast growth rate throughout life history. We see that dinosaurs were growing very, very quickly on par with modern mammals and birds, not like reptiles at all. This is a great example from a young Apatosaurus, a young, large sauropod dinosaur. All of these white spaces that we see here are places where blood vessels used to flow through this bone when the animal was still alive. And this is completely different than the bone that we might see of a reptile like a crocodile or a turtle. Instead, this is a lot more similar to those bones of mammals and birds.
What she's discovered from deep within the dinosaur bones has reinforced the idea that at least some of them were warm-blooded.
Dinosaurs, just like other modern animals, probably were fairly well adapted for whatever thermoregulatory strategy. I think that they were perfectly well adapted to deal with the problems of maintaining a body temperature.
Advances in technology were allowing scientists to break new ground, proving that dinosaurs weren't just giant lizards, but a truly unique kind of reptile. But like a detective looking for clues, finding a whole dinosaur skeleton was the paleontologist's dream. And in 1990, an American fossil hunter hit the jackpot. For Pete Larson and his then-girlfriend Susan, the day had started as an ordinary, everyday fossil hunt.
We were out actually digging on a Triceratops skull that my 10-year-old son Matthew had found. And we were just having a grand old time. It's a very, very nice small Triceratops skull. And all of a sudden, Susan walked up with a couple bone fragments. And I said, "Is there more?" And she said, "There's lots more."
Nothing could have prepared them for what they'd found.
I looked up the face of the cliff and I saw an expanse about 8 feet wide and perhaps 2 feet deep with bones jutting out everywhere. And as I crawled up to the top of this exposure, I saw 3 articulated vertebrae. I knew that they had to come from a T-Rex because of the size of the curve of those bones. They were obviously parts of vertebrae from a meat-eating dinosaur. And when I saw those 3 articulated vertebrae, I knew this was going to be the most important specimen that we'd ever dug on. I just knew it.
Pete Larson marveled at the size of the partially exposed killer dinosaur and nicknamed it Sue, after his girlfriend.
It was like clawing our way to the top of Mount Everest. And as we were uncovering it, we could see the top. And as we got her out of the ground, we were there. We had climbed the Mount Everest of paleontology. We got the biggest, baddest of all the T-Rexes that ever was.
And it got even better. Sue was extremely well preserved and nearly complete. Exactly what Pete Larson had dreamed of finding. At long last, here was a chance to study the world's ultimate killing machine in extraordinary detail, and all from just this one specimen.
Deep within Sue's well-preserved skull, scientists were about to discover something they'd never seen before. And cutting-edge technology would allow them to see it in exquisite detail.
Basically, when it comes down to it, I was told to describe the thing inside and out. I took that literally. I knew they wouldn't let me break the skull apart, so CT scanning is the answer.
CT scanning is an advanced X-ray imaging technique. It allowed Chris Brochu to build up computer images of slices through the head, which he molded together to produce a 3-dimensional likeness of a T-Rex skull. Then, painstakingly, millimeter by millimeter, he followed the contours on the inside of this skull to reveal the structure of a T-Rex brain.
The first time I saw the individual slices themselves, they didn't seem all that exciting. It wasn't until I built the first animation, the first flip through a bunch of slices all going through the skull. That was when it really struck me that there were a lot of things here to see.
The CT scans revealed something scientists had never before been able to see in such detail. Protruding from the delicate network of brain tissue was the optic nerve. This nerve was responsible for relaying information from the eyes to the visual centers in the brain. And it was big enough to carry a lot of information. The scans seemed to confirm T-Rex did indeed have a key attribute of a skilled predator. It would have been able to seek out its prey at a distance and destroy it with the accuracy of an assassin.
T-Rex could see its prey, but that didn't automatically make it an efficient killer. To get to grips with its enormous jaws, scientists devised a risky experiment.
Lockjaw, lockjaw, lockjaw. Gators and crocodiles make a great model for studying the feeding biomechanics of extinct theropod dinosaurs. They have very similar musculature, and just the basic leverage of their jaws and things like that are actually just a good analogy for tyrannosaur feeding.
Okay, grab that pole.
Okay, let's go.
Watch your feet, watch your feet. Remember, she can run forward.
Okay, everybody ready for the pop? 1, 2, 3.
Go, 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 go! Watch your feet, Ray.
Yep.
This is a female American crocodile, Stevie.
Okay, let's work
A youngster at 31 years old, she's only half the size she could become. She may be small, but her strength is obvious.
Bob has the tape. Stay in line with her. Back up, back up, back up, back up! Back up!
Who's got tape?
Bob got the tape. She's heavy.
Because her jaws are thought to work in a similar way to T-Rex jaws, Erickson plans to measure her bite to see what it may reveal about the power behind a T-Rex bite. Yet as she's small and he's not tested her before, he has no idea what kind of results he'll get.
Pull the leg out of that. I'm all set.
Erickson needs to get the crocodile to crunch onto a specially designed pressure sensor, which will record the force of the bite.
Okay, everybody ready? Okay, Jim, take off the eyes a little bit.
The tricky bit is getting the timing right.
Yep, here we go.
The bite needs to be a spontaneous one.
Okay, here we go. Hang on. £819. Good bite. An 800-pound bite is comparable to what a lion could do, or a spotted hyena, which is the bone-crushing champion among mammals. So a very small crocodilian is capable of doing bite forces equal to what some of these large carnivorous mammals do. If you matched up an equal-sized crocodile, say, to a large lion, though, the crocodile will bite probably 3 times more forcefully.
Watch your legs. Yeah. Remember these
If jaws like these give crocodiles a bite force well above what their weight implies, then Erickson believes the same must have been true of T-Rex jaws.
Nice canine on his side.
His work suggested the power of a T-Rex bite may have been on a scale beyond anything we have ever seen.
It's not a natural thing to stick your hand inside the mouth of a crocodile, but probably shouldn't try this at home, kids.
To get an idea of how much more powerful, Erickson worked on doing more than just scale up the bite.
Snout width is 14.2.
He measured every physical detail of his crocodiles to try to map the differences in skull shape and body weight compared to an animal the size and shape of a T-Rex.
50.2 head length retro.
Erickson's preliminary maximum estimate of a T-Rex bite could be as much as 40,000 pounds of force. That's about 50 times more powerful than our crocodile. T-Rex would have had easily the most powerful bite of any animal that has ever lived.
The combination of new finds and advanced technology has enabled paleontologists to interpret fossils with greater certainty. We now know more than ever before about what dinosaurs looked like, how fast they grew, their skill as predators, and how they moved. All building a convincing picture of how the dinosaurs came to dominate the Earth for over 160 million years. 160 million years is a pretty long time and makes dinosaurs some of the most successful animals ever to have walked the Earth. After all, modern humans have only been around for a couple of 100,000 years. Now, evidence of dinosaur life fills the geological record, but then suddenly, 65 million years ago, it all disappeared. The dinosaurs vanished. Scientists spent years scrutinizing dinosaur bones, looking for answers.
You got something?
Yeah. This is a caudal vertebrae off.
Great.
They struggled to come up with ideas to explain the mass extinction.
Perhaps the climate deteriorated, becoming too hot. Or too cold. Or suddenly too wet. Or too dry. There were problems, maybe, of reproduction. Or maybe their eggs were eaten by the tiny furry mammals. Maybe it was God's will, or lack of standing room in the ark.
But it was only when they turned their attention to rocks rather than bones that scientists had a breakthrough. Geologists searching for clues to the extinction discovered an unusual layer of clay in the geological record that marked the boundary between the time of the dinosaurs and the time of mammals. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Luis Alvarez and his team took up the challenge.
See this clay layer here? It's about a ½ inch thick. That's when the dinosaurs went out. We really don't know how long it took, why it's there. And so I said, maybe some of the tricks that I know as a physicist might help unravel that story. And then we talked about it for the next couple of weeks and finally decided to look for iridium as a measure of the deposition rate.
A small quantity of the metal iridium constantly falls to Earth from space, and the team expected to find only trace amounts. But their tests showed something astonishing. There was so much iridium in the clay layer, there could only be one source. Alvarez's radical idea was that it had been brought to Earth by a meteorite.
The vast majority of iridium-bearing meteorites started life as asteroids. Most of them, in an orbit between Mars and Jupiter, never come anywhere near the Earth. But the theory goes that a few are occasionally swung out of line by the enormous gravitational pull of Jupiter. A very few of these finish up in an orbit which crosses the Earth's. Most of the time they pass harmlessly by, but every now and then they collide. Alvarez's theory is that 65 million years ago, a huge asteroid, 6 miles wide, smashed into the Earth with devastating effects. It was this collision, he believes, that covered the Earth with iridium and wiped out the dinosaurs. It's not all that far-fetched. Only 25,000 years ago, a much smaller collision caused Meteor Crater in Arizona. There are larger impact craters on the Earth's surface. Many have been eroded away over time and are rather difficult to recognize. Nevertheless, so far over the whole world, more than 200 have been identified. But none of these is both the right age and size for Alvarez's theory. However, there's an alternative. The asteroid may have landed in the sea. Dr. Cesare Emiliani.
We have no evidence at all of a crater of the size that this asteroid should have made, either on land or on the ocean floor. This is a map that shows the structure of the ocean floor. On the other hand, we have quite a bit of evidence indicating that plant life on the continents in a broad area ranging from the Urals to the Rockies suffered somewhat at the end of the Cretaceous, while plant life west of the Urals, from the Urals to the Rockies around the North Atlantic, suffered very little or nothing at all. That would seem to indicate that the point of impact of the asteroid was somewhere between the Urals and the Rockies. Now, we have no crater on land, we have no crater on the visible ocean floor, on what we see now, but a portion of the ocean floor since then has disappeared under the continent, because the oceanic crust moves toward the continent and dives under the continents. There is a substantial chance that the asteroid might have hit an area of the ocean floor that has since disappeared. So if one were to make a wild guess as to where the asteroid might have hit, one would say somewhere in the North Pacific, around here.
Without finding a crater, it was hard to prove that it was an asteroid that had killed off the dinosaurs. But by 1997, scientists realized they'd been looking in the wrong place. A number of circular structures had been found in the Caribbean. Brand confirmed the theory proposed 17 years earlier that a devastating asteroid had hit the Earth 65 million years ago. By 2004, scientists believed they had proof that the impact had caused a massive explosion. Quickly followed by an enormous shockwave that had destroyed life for hundreds of miles around. And there was more. Investigations of the layer of rock that marks the time when the dinosaurs disappeared, known as the KT boundary, revealed further evidence of what had happened in the aftermath.
These are called spherules. They're actually made of round rock globules, so we know they're condensed from a very hot vapor cloud. And it also tells us, some of the mineralogy in there tells us that these spherules, these globules, originated at very high temperatures. Well, that's exciting. You know something hot happened, and hot is associated with an impact.
The spherules were evidence that the fireball had vaporized billions of tons of rock. In outer space, the vapor condensed into tiny droplets, which fell back all over the Earth as white-hot spherules. From America to New Zealand, there seemed to be evidence of massive burning at the time of the impact. It looked as if the world's forests had spontaneously ignited as the rain of spherules heated the atmosphere by up to 1,000 degrees centigrade.
If we're looking at 600, 1,000 degrees, then this would instantly have ignited all the plant matter across the world, and it just would have been sent up in flames.
The impact was also thought to have created a deluge of vicious acid rain. The fireball had released chemicals which turned the water deadly.
It was suggested that the acid rain had a pH so low that it was like battery acid. And if you had something that low in pH, it would literally burn everything on the land, from plants to the dinosaurs to everything else.
Then there was the final clue from the KT boundary: a high concentration of fern spores. Ferns flourish whenever all other plants have been killed off by some environmental devastation. So the predominance of fern spores, known as a fern spike, suggested something had wiped out every plant on the planet.
Fern spikes were found all over the world, such as in New Zealand. And this, I think, became stronger and stronger evidence that there was something like global darkness caused by an impact.
So the theory grew up that vast amounts of dust created by the impact must have blocked out the sun. This could have plunged the world into freezing darkness for months or years. Any dinosaurs which had escaped burning either froze or starved to death.
The mystery surrounding the death of the dinosaurs finally appeared to have been solved. A number of factors may have influenced the extinction, but research had shown that the impact at Chicxulub was the crucial factor. We should probably be thankful for that mighty asteroid, because if the dinosaurs hadn't been wiped out, then mammals may never have flourished and we might not exist. So what would have happened if an asteroid hadn't hit the Earth and the dinosaurs had survived? Well, it's a thought that's given rise to some fairly novel ideas.
I think that some dinosaurs, like some mammals, would have become increasingly intelligent at a geometric rate, as did our own ancestors. And I think possibly by this time, the dinosaurs themselves would have approached our own level of brain development. Ron Seguin, a sculptor at our museum, and myself have collaborated over the last several months in trying to estimate what the appearance of one of these highly encephalized or intelligent dinosaurs might have been, a dinosaur for the 1980s, and here is an example of what we think it may have looked like.
Their model of a 20th century dinosaur incorporates many features of the original reptiles. The binocular vision, the absence of an external ear, a deep chest cavity with ribs all the way down the abdomen, opposable fingers and no external genitalia. But it looks closer to a human being than a brontosaurus. In building it, have they perhaps unwittingly favored our own kind?
I don't think so. I think just as the birds and the bats and the flying reptiles all have a crudely avian form, I think so too there is a meaning to the human form, so that we are, in effect, adapted to interact with an environment as highly encephalized bipeds or walking animals with a very large brain.
So perhaps if it were not for a chance collision with an asteroid, creatures very like this could be ruling the world today, just as they did all those millions of years ago.
Let's imagine perhaps that the dinosaurs really did become some sort of dinosauroid. The great rock doesn't fall out of the sky. It's a bright light in the sky. The dinosaur says, "What's that?" No idea. The mass extinction is postponed. In fact, it's cancelled. So what's happening then? We've got the apes rapidly evolving, and then they're beginning to look over their shoulders because, just conceivably, there are also these dinosauroids doing rather similar things. And then, of course, it's fascinating. What would have happened? Would it have been an evolutionary race? Maybe there would have been a winner, or maybe, ultimately, unbelievably, madly, it could have been perhaps even a cooperation.
The utopian notion of dinosaurs and humans sharing the planet may appeal, even be plausible to some. But most paleontologists see the dinosauroid as an insult to dinosaurs.
There's probably some good ideas there. The brain was getting bigger, and they probably would have continued to outcompete other animals. But for them to become fully erect like humans, I think is a little bit fanciful.
Dinosaurs would have continued to develop. They would have continued to specialize. They would have adapted. But they would have adapted and specialized as dinosaurs. They wouldn't have become primates or primate-like.
The idea that dinosauroid could exist as a scientific question, it's bogus. It's about as bogus as it gets.
And it is fairly arrogant to think that the end point of all evolutionary trajectories should sort of emulate human beings.
If the asteroid had never hit, life on Earth could have been very different. But of course, that's all just crazy speculation. Everybody now knows that the dinosaurs were wiped out 65 million years ago, and none of them survived that catastrophic asteroid impact. Or did they? The idea that dinosaurs may have evolved into something else is one that had been doing the rounds for many years, but it began to gather momentum when some paleontologists began to increasingly suspect that dinosaurs might still be alive.
The Natural History Museum, London. Within these hallowed halls lies the fossil that first hinted at the origin of birds. Discovered in Germany 100 years ago, superstitious quarry workers thought it was a fallen angel. Archaeopteryx turned out to be something almost as remarkable. The size of a pigeon, it possessed teeth, a long bony tail, and claws on its arms, all features of reptiles. At the same time, it was very much like a bird.
It actually has impressions of the wing feathers, both wings, and long tail feathers. But the tail has a long set of bones running down it as well, which modern birds don't have at all. So Archaeopteryx really does seem to be a primitive bird. These fossils, well, I still find it very exciting to look at them because they have so much scientific information contained in them, but they're very beautiful objects to look at in their own right. And they really are an exceptional snapshot record of evolution.
That fossil was to be the key to something that John Ostrom had been thinking about for decades. When he'd first described Deinonychus in the 1960s, he'd noticed that its skeleton was strangely similar to that of a bird. Archaeopteryx helped him refine his ideas.
Neat animal, isn't it? I think so. And what made me even more excited was when I saw structures in that animal that I subsequently recognized in Archaeopteryx.
So this is the Solnhofen Archaeopteryx?
This is what I call a Solnhofen specimen, yeah.
John Ostrom's crucial realization was that his beloved Deinonychus shared many anatomical features with Archaeopteryx. He compared in detail the skeletons of predatory dinosaurs, Archaeopteryx, and modern birds. He found a whole set of similarities, most notably in the skull, the hind limbs, and the forearms. For a start, they all have the same number of fingers.
This is a skeleton of a modern pigeon. 3 fingers in the hand of a modern bird, 3 fingers preserved in the hand of Deinonychus. And that particular kind of hand morphology is also supplemented by the strange wrist bone that allows for the flexibility that produces the flapping strokes. The similarities between birds and the predaceous dinosaurs is amazing to me.
But, as with all groundbreaking new theories, Ostrom's idea had its detractors.
Well, the dinosaur bird theory has tremendous popular appeal. One can vicariously study dinosaurs at the backyard bird feeder. And one can go get a piece of dinosaur leg at the local Kentucky Fried Chicken. So it has tremendous appeal to the public. Unfortunately, it seems to be wrong.
Alan Fiducia argued that birds evolved long before dinosaurs came along. They descended from much more primitive reptiles, and any similarities between birds and predatory dinosaurs were superficial. They resembled each other because they both walked on their hind legs, not because they were closely related.
Ancient hunter, and proudly presented it to the world. Scientists could now say that dinosaurs evolved into birds. One of the most important theories in evolution was finally proved. But birds and dinosaurs was a fake. The dinosaur fake was a dreadful blow for supporters of the bird theory, but scientists who were committed to the idea refused to give up. They were determined to keep looking for proof. Although the fossil had been a fake, its front half was a new kind of primitive bird. Fossil hunters flocked to the region where it had been found, and they struck gold. Extraordinary, well-preserved fossils revealed dinosaurs and birds not only shared features like downy feathers, but also hollow bones and similar pelvises and hind limbs. On a remote farm in Colorado, paleontologist Brent Breithaupt presented even more proof of the close relationship between the ancient fossils and birds.
Very good. Okay, that should make an excellent track. Here we have two tracks that we recently made. This one here is from the Red Gulch dinosaur track site. This one here preserves the three-toe impressions, the tridactyl impressions of the foot of the dinosaurs, the small to medium-sized theropod dinosaurs that lived up there. Now over here, we have one that we just got from this site. Again, a nice tridactyl footprint. Again, very well preserved. If we compare both of these casts, we can see these particular tracks look very, very much the same.
But these footprints are not those of a theropod that died over 65 million years ago. These are only a few hours old. There's dinosaurs in them there hills. In fact, dinosaurs are everywhere. For the first time on network television, paleontologist Julia Clark is about to perform an autopsy on a dinosaur. Only you are more likely to know it as a roast turkey. Because you see, birds are dinosaurs.
So today we're going to dissect the evidence that birds are living dinosaurs from this turkey. What we're pulling off here is the major flight muscle, the supracoracoideus, that is in Velociraptor and Oviraptor. One of the features you see is that the second finger is the longest, and this is a feature we see going back as far as early dinosaurs, you know, even Triassic forms. Of course, we're all familiar with wishbones from any kind of turkey meal, but this wishbones actually are one of the kind of most intuitive pieces of evidence that birds are living dinosaurs, because we have wishbones now from a whole variety of theropod dinosaurs, including relatives of Tyrannosaurus and Velociraptor, and even earlier dinosaurs such as Coelophysis.
Yes, just as we share 98% of our DNA with chimps, turkeys, in fact all modern birds, are direct descendants of theropod dinosaurs. And the freshly made dinosaur tracks in the hills of Colorado? Emus. Inwardly, outwardly, even in the way they move, the similarities between theropod dinosaurs and birds are numerous. But being warm-blooded, their ultimate success was in an evolutionary solution to the need to keep warm.
Large dinosaurs really don't have a problem with body heat. Basically, if they have a problem, it's getting rid of excess body heat. But small dinosaurs have this problem. They're losing their heat all the time. So it would be a good thing if a small dinosaur was warm-blooded for it to have some kind of insulation on its body.
It started with the development of thin, downy filaments. In time, those filaments strengthened and thickened. As non-flying birds, emus are perhaps one of the best examples of feathers as they were originally designed, as an insulating layer.
Once you have those long feathers, then of course it does give you an aerodynamic advantage as well. If you have that advantage, then selection starts working on that advantage. And it may well be that that was forcing these feathers to become longer and longer until finally that animal not only jumped across the ditch, it actually flapped its arms and flew across the ditch.
And so it seems that flight, far from being the reason for the evolution of feathers, may have been a byproduct. But with it, some dinosaurs were already adapting in ways that would equip them for life after the meteorite impact. The fact of the matter is that the age of the dinosaurs never actually ended. Dinosaurs did survive the cataclysmic event of 65 million years ago.
So when we talk about dinosaurs living with us today, and the fanciful notion of what it would be like, it's not so much fantasy. They're right there.
The dinosaurs have not only survived, there are far more species of them on the Earth today than there are mammals.
They're not the biggest animals anymore, but still there's over 10,000 living species of descendants of dinosaurs.
They didn't actually go extinct at the end of the Cretaceous period like everybody thinks. They're outside flying around. We can't go into a forest without hearing dinosaurs.
So in that sense, maybe they actually won out, and we just think we're on top.
Over the last half-century, scientists have hunted all over the world for new clues to help them piece together the fragments which reveal the life of the dinosaurs. They've come up with ingenious new ways of working out how the dinosaurs lived and behaved, made extraordinary discoveries, and battled to answer some of the oldest, most vital questions of all. But there are still things that we don't know. There are mysteries to be solved. And one of the exciting things about paleontology is that in an instant, perhaps with just the tiniest of discoveries, everything that we think we know about dinosaurs today could all change again. There are always new discoveries out there waiting to be found.
BBC iPlayer has the whole series of the captivating, shocking and breathtaking Blue Planet Live available now. And David Attenborough's on BBC Two tomorrow with the intriguing story of a German horse that was declared a maths genius. Natural Curiosities at 7.